Hey guys, so I've been wanting to do an update to my Beauty Heroes box this month. If you watched that, I'll link it down below if you haven't. Then you will remember that the featured brand this month is True Botanicals, and I talked about in that video how I had some issues with that brand and what my issues were. And I hadn't had a conversation with Jeannie yet at the time of that video, but I have since had a conversation with her about why she is working with True Botanicals again. So I did just want to do a follow-up to that video, because what I want to do is have sort of like a larger conversation about what does green beauty mean to you? Does green beauty mean cruelty-free? Does green beauty mean vegan? Does green beauty mean that it aligns, that the brand that you buy from aligns with your political beliefs? What does green beauty mean to you? Does it just mean that you're buying clean beauty products and the rest of the inner workings of the brands or whatever else goes on, you know, doesn't matter to you? Does it matter to you if a company is invested by another bigger company that does tests on animals or has other sketchy business practices? So yeah, I just kind of wanted to have that conversation. I am a cruelty-free vegan beauty channel. I do use beeswax and honey still, and that is a video that I am working on and I'm going to try to get out in the next couple of months, because I think it's that's another important conversation to have, where I think that we should be supporting beeswax and honey, but we'll save that for my other video. But the conversation that I wanted to have today is what green beauty means to you. So green beauty to me doesn't just mean that I'm using clean products. And it doesn't just mean vegan for me, because of what I just said. I still use honey and beeswax. So it's not like a vegan thing for me, but clean and green beauty, to me it sort of means almost like a more compassionate. I just associate green beauty with compassion, and not just in like a cruelty-free aspect. I think compassion comes in, you know, so many different ways. There's compassion for each other, for the other people on this planet, compassion for Earth, which I think is a big reason people switch to greener beauty. It's not just for themselves and, you know, what products we're putting on our skin. It's also for the planet. Green beauty is just more compassionate for the planet. But I think it also, you know, there's also compassion for other animals, you know, creatures of this earth, not just of ourselves. And I think we're sort of just in like an epidemic in our, you know, society these days. We know we've got the plastic problem. There's the palm oil problem, where it's contributing to the loss of habitats for orangutans. And then there are some brands that do use sustainable palm done right. Au Naturel does use palm done right. I'm seeing a lot more brands use sustainable palm, I think because they know that it's a huge problem. And I do my best to stay away from anything that uses anything but sustainable palm, but you know, it's sort of like corn in processed foods. If you eat, you know, packaged foods in the grocery store, it's kind of hard to stay away from, you know, like corn and soy. Unless you're eating a fully, you know, plant-based diet where you just, you know, eat out of the produce section and you don't eat anything else. But for me, green beauty doesn't just mean, you know, clean products. It means compassion for the earth, compassion for other animals, because I'm cruelty-free, and I think that's important. And, you know, all green beauty brands in general are cruelty-free. I don't think that there's been one that I've come across that's tested on animals, because I think that that's a big thing for green beauty, is compassion towards animals and no animal testing. And it's a totally unnecessary practice that I would hope would have been eradicated by now, but in some cases it's even becoming like more of a problem. And, you know, but there are some states or some countries that are trying to get rid of it, which I think is great. I think I saw something about Canada and California recently and new cruelty-free or animal testing laws. If I find them, I can link what I'm talking about below. Anything that I'm talking about, I can like link something below. But it also means, so it means clean products that I'm putting on my skin. It means compassion for animals. It means compassion for the earth. So there's nothing toxic being dumped into the earth. There's, you know, businesses are practicing renewable energy, or renewable resources, things like that. So, you know, things where they're not just taking, they're, you know, giving back, and not in like a plastic into the environment kind of way. But yeah, green beauty means sort of like, it's just compassion for me. It's just sort of like a compassionate place. And the problem that I have with True Botanicals, so I did have a conversation with Jeannie about it. She told me, you know, her reasonings behind working with the brand, and you know, the whole Unilever thing. So I wasn't sure if Unilever had acquired True Botanicals or if it was just an investment in my previous video. They did just invest a portion of money into True Botanicals. I believe it was like $3 million or something like that. True Botanicals actually acquired investments from a couple of different companies. One of them, I think, was also a jerky company, which I also have an issue with too. I'm vegan, obviously. I don't eat meat or dairy, so I have a problem with any industry that is, you know, any company that accepts investment from other companies like that. And it definitely becomes like a sticky situation after that. Once a green beauty company that, you know, claims, has a cruelty-free claim, accepts money from companies that aren't. We see a lot of it in food companies. You know, Ben & Jerry's is owned by Unilever. There are a lot of, Ben & Jerry's does have a vegan ice cream line. That's why I mentioned Ben & Jerry's, otherwise I wouldn't have. There are a lot of food companies that are actually owned by these bigger corporations, by like Nestle or General Mills or Unilever, or there's a bunch of others. I didn't write down every single one, because I was mostly focusing on the green beauty aspect of it. But there are, you know, there's a ton of food companies that are owned by these giant corporations, and it just becomes like a whole bigger issue. So my issue with True Botanicals accepting money from Unilever is that they know about Unilever. They know what kind of business practices they run. They know that I guess Unilever themselves don't test on animals, but they have a lot of different brands underneath them that test on animals. And it's any company that sells in China, they're required by law to test on animals. Now, True Botanicals doesn't sell in China, at least at the moment. I wouldn't put it past them, because I've heard the owner of True Botanicals say things like they want to be the biggest company, or they want to be in the top 10 or something like that. I think that if you get into, one of the arguments that Jeannie made for still supporting True Botanicals was that, you know, a lot of these other companies that she works with do work with investors to invest in their brand, which is true. I mean, we don't know every single investor that every brand works with, and I think the only reason that this one is such a problem is because True Botanicals went into an investment with Unilever knowing what kind of company they are. And it's not just a cruelty-free or animal testing thing. Unilever was a big supporter in the whole GMO labeling thing, and, you know, which is a whole nother huge issue. It's like, we want more transparency in not just our products, but in our food. I want to know what's in my food. I refuse to buy any food that doesn't have a non-GMO label on it. I absolutely will not, and that's important to me. Not GMOs, and knowing if my food has been genetically modified is huge for me. I want to know, and I think it's important that people should know and should be able to make those decisions for themselves. And if something is made with genetically modified food, I want to know about it. And, you know, maybe some people don't have a problem with it. That's definitely their prerogative and their choice. But for me and my family, I want to make sure that I'm buying food that's non-GMO, which is why I shop at places like Sprouts or Whole Foods, and I don't go to, you know, like Albertsons or Fry's or Safeway or like a bigger chain grocery store anymore, because they don't carry the kinds of foods that I want to feed my family. And, you know, Whole Foods is expensive, but at least everything that I buy is non-GMO labeled. And I have a problem with Unilever like lobbying against that. So that's a whole separate issue than just the animal cruelty thing is. So True Botanicals got into dealings with Unilever knowing, one, that they're not a cruelty-free brand or company or whatever, and they also lobbied against GMO labeling, which so, I mean, it's obviously True Botanicals' choice, business choice, what they choose to do, if, you know, who they choose to take money from. They want to be a big business, and that's definitely respectable, but if you're going to go into business with a company like Unilever, then you have to expect that people are going to have a problem with it, especially people that are in green beauty because they're compassionate people and because compassion for animals and the environment and for other people is important to them. And I do feel like it was a deal that was sort of swept under the rug, and I think a lot of these deals are, you know, and we don't hear, like Jeannie said, we don't hear about investments being made into other companies, and maybe that's something that we need to start looking into, is what kinds of companies have invested into the companies that we love. Does it become a bigger issue then? But I don't know. I mean, that's not any research that I've done since I've had the conversation with Jeannie. I don't know about any of the other investments of any of the brands that I love. Like, does All Naturel have, you know, big investors? I mean, they're working with huge companies like Whole Foods and Amazon, and I mean, so they've got to have something, right? So, but we don't know. I haven't looked that up. That's not something that's been, you know, publicly voiced. And I think that if you're a company and your whole ethos of your brand is cruelty-free, green, natural, compassionate, you know, give back, those are the things that you put out there about yourself and your brand, I would think that you would want to only accept investments from companies that are of similar ethos to yourself, right? I mean, if I was a brand, let's just hypothetically say that I was, you know, approached by Unilever, a pretty big investment or an acquisition to my brand, to get my brand to a higher place, you know, a place where it's highly recognized, where it's one of the biggest brands, I would say no, because, you know, I'm not a business owner, obviously. There's probably dealings that I don't know about, but I would say no, because they don't align with my beliefs. I don't believe in what they stand for, and I think that stuff gets lost sometimes. There are so many brands that pair with these giant companies that just are so opposite of themselves. It happens all the time in conventional beauty. Yeah, these companies are being bought by parent companies all the time, and I just don't understand it. If you make a claim that your brand is one thing, but then you pair with another brand that's completely opposite of everything that you are, I just don't get it. So, and I know that there were some things that were said about Beauty Heroes and the whole pairing with True Botanicals and what kind of company Beauty Heroes then is, and I definitely think that there are some things that were said that aren't fair to Beauty Heroes. I definitely still support Beauty Heroes. This is just, it's sort of like a blip in like my whole time with Beauty Heroes on like having an issue with something that they've done. And I definitely don't think that it's fair to hold. It's fair that some of the things that have been said about Beauty Heroes, like they're only in it for the money, or I don't know. There were some things that were said that I don't think are fair. I definitely know the kind of person that Jeannie is, and she's not the kind of person that's out to like, I don't, she's not what I was seeing some people say, and I'm sure that hurt, and I know that that's unfair, and so Jeannie did say that she, you know, by working with True Botanicals, she's not defending Unilever, but she is representing True Botanicals and the work that True Botanicals is doing. You know, I want green beauty to be more accessible. I want green beauty to be more, I want green beauty to be, I don't know, I go back and forth on what I want green beauty to be. Like, I like that it's sort of like this niche thing, or it was for a long time. That was sort of like this niche thing. You know, I want people to be more aware of like the chemicals that they're putting on their skin and things that they're ingesting, and being more aware about ingredients and things like that. But then it also just gets, I also worry about it getting too big, that it can't sustain itself and it has to sort of resort to more conventional practices because the ingredients aren't there, or I mean, that's a problem in green beauty already, is that there are lots of natural ingredients that are hard to come by, or they're getting more expensive because they're harder to come by. So that's, you know, that's an issue with, you know, a brand getting too big, is, you know, the sustainability of it is, will the ingredients always be there? And if they're not, what are they going to do? Are they going to resort to more questionable ingredient practices or business practices? So I don't know. I hope I've made some kind of sense in that. I just think that if a brand is going to brand themselves as something, cruelty-free, vegan, ethical, something, if they're gonna brand themselves a certain way, but then they get into business with companies that are not what they brand themselves as, I think that's when you get into the problem that people have. And, you know, like I said, I do think that a lot of people had no idea that this was even a thing, but, you know, people had no idea that Unilever had invested in True Botanicals, because there was like an article about it when it first happened, and then I feel like it just sort of like disappeared. And, you know, there are still a lot of bigger green beauty bloggers who blog about True Botanicals a lot. And I did see that one of them was questioned, but then didn't actually answer the question. Someone asked them why they still supported True Botanicals, and she basically bypassed the question, but then said, if you want me to write a blog post about it, I will. I'm like, well, then just answer the question. So I do feel like in this case, even in bloggers, there's not a lot of transparency about why they still work with these companies. And I think that's an important question to have for people that you follow. Like, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to question. It's okay to say, hey, why do you still support this thing that I don't support? I mean, you shouldn't have to try to change anybody's mind, but definitely question. And if you find that the people that you're following don't have the same values that you do, definitely look for other bloggers who have the same values that you do, who focus on, you know, everything being cruelty-free that they talk about, and not supporting brands like Unilever and essentially True Botanicals. So, I mean, that's not to say that these beauty bloggers are bad. I question integrity a lot. Is it just about money? Is it just about exposure? Like, what is it? I don't know. So I mean, I question that a lot in a lot of people, in a lot of bloggers, is integrity. I mean, people will talk about anything if it's free, or people will talk about anything if they're getting paid. And I don't think that that's, you know, you see that a lot more in conventional brands, but I don't think it's an impossible thing in green beauty, and I've seen it before. So I definitely just think that you should be more aware of who you're following. Definitely ask questions. If you see something that bothers you, definitely, you know, say something. I don't have a problem speaking up. And could I have done my video a little bit differently? Could I have had a conversation with Jeannie beforehand so I didn't sort of like catch her off guard? Yeah, I could have. That was definitely my bad. But I wanted to talk about it, and I specifically still accepted that box because I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about the issue, because what I see a lot of times people doing is they just ignore the issue. They just say, you know, I don't want to receive that box because I don't support it, I don't want to talk about it, and they just don't. And that's fine. I totally respect those decisions, but I think that these things need to be talked about. I think that there are conversations that need to be had. And so yes, that is why I did accept that box. And I could have not accepted it but then still talked about it in a video, but I definitely think it was more effective to sort of talk about the products and then talk about this whole thing that was going on. Because if I hadn't talked about it, there are a lot of you guys that would not have known that Unilever had a stake in True Botanicals. Because I didn't see anybody talking about it before I did. I definitely feel like I started a conversation, and I do feel like it sort of died down and people are not talking about it again. So I don't know, that's just sort of how things go though. It's like, it's like a big thing and then it just sort of dies off and it's back to the way that it was before. So I don't know, definitely just do your research. I mean, it's important even as consumers and not bloggers to do your research. Do your research on ingredients, do your research on brands, do your research on companies, do your research on everything. It's exhausting, and it just gets really tiring after a while, especially when you run into things like this. But it's important. It's important to be informed about everything that you put on and in your body and the companies that produce it for you. I did also just want to quickly mention green brands that I don't consider cruelty-free. Because like the whole True Botanicals and Unilever thing, there are brands that you might not know are in cahoots with Unilever or Colgate or Clorox or SC Johnson. So Unilever is the biggest offender in sort of acquiring and investing in green beauty brands. So Unilever has investments in True Botanicals, which we've talked about, and they also have investments in LXMI, which I think is a less known green beauty brand. They do sell them in Sephora, I believe, and they actually were featured in a Pearlesque box last year. I don't know when the investment happened, I'm going to link you down to the Unilever investments page where it has like a list of all the companies that they're invested in, but they don't own. So they don't show up on like the Unilever brands page. It's like Unilever Ventures or something like that. It's like a totally different offshoot than like the Unilever brand. So if you go and look up Unilever brands, you won't find True Botanicals in there because they don't own them, but they did invest a bunch of money into them. And it's the same with LXMI. So I'm going to link the Unilever Ventures page down below for you to check out. Schmidt's Naturals deodorant, they did acquire, I believe it was last year, and I do want to say that there have been some changes to the company since they've acquired them. I've heard people say that the formula's not the same, or there's fragrance in them now, which this stuff happens when green beauty brands are acquired by bigger corporations. 7th Generation was also acquired by Unilever, and I'll admit, up until recently, I have still been using 7th Generation dishwasher detergent because it works. But I have since made an effort to find something that works, and I've picked up the BioClean detergent now. So everything that I use cleaning-wise is now completely cruelty-free. Dollar Shave Club, which is one of those, it's not a green beauty brand, but I actually looked into them a while ago, and then when I discovered that they were owned by Unilever, I was like, oh, forget it. But it's one of those companies where it's a razor subscription club where they send you razors every single month, so you don't, and it's like cheap, so you don't have to go out and like buy them. They also own them. Ren Skincare, which actually had contacted me about a week before I found out that they were owned by Unilever. So that email went ignored. But Ren Skincare is also owned by Unilever. So let's see. Mrs. Meyer's, which is not really a clean brand, but I think some people associate it with clean brand because it's a very greenwashed brand. I used them for a long time before I realized that the ingredients in them were just terrible. But they are owned by SC Johnson. Burt's Bees is owned by Clorox, and I know that they've undergone a lot of changes since Clorox bought them, and they became a I don't consider them cruelty-free anymore. But they've undergone a lot of changes since they were bought by Clorox, to the formulas, to ingredients, things like that. Tom's of Maine is owned by Colgate. And I don't know if their formulas have changed at all, but they are like a more green company. Then there was one that I wanted to talk about that was owned for a long time by a company that tested on animals, and then they got out of it. So the Body Shop used to actually be owned by L'Oreal from 2006 to 2017, and then it was sold to Natura & Co. And is cruelty-free again. So they were owned by L'Oreal, which is a huge offender of animal cruelty. L'Oreal actively tests on animals. They sell in China. It's just awful. They make claims all the time that their stuff is cruelty-free, and it's not. But yeah, I think that the Body Shop got such a bad rap for a long time because they were in dealings with L'Oreal that people just refused to shop with them anymore. And I think that I want to say that I think that they realized how bad of a business move that ended up being, that they switched to a different parent company. I mean, I don't know for sure. It could be any reason why they made the switch, but I would like to see these brands that get into companies that don't hold the same values as themselves get out. I would like to see them partner with other brands that that align with their beliefs and their standards. So anyway, I don't know really what else I have to say other than what I have said. I still won't be supporting True Botanicals. I still support Beauty Heroes. I definitely don't think this was a move that Jeannie made to sort of like make more money. I mean, if you guys can imagine, I don't even know how Jeannie makes any money with the subscription box prices that they are and the value of the products that are in the boxes. Wait until you see August's box. You will not understand how she is able to charge, I think it's like $42 a month now. I don't understand how she does it. It's like impossible how she is able to partner with these brands for the values of the boxes for the little price that she charges. I just don't understand. So yes, also that being said, if you, the August box is phenomenal, you want to subscribe to it. So I'm going to leave the link for that down below. Just don't even question it because it's going to sell out. But yeah, we are past the subscribe point for True Botanicals. That is no longer an option to subscribe to. So if you subscribe now, you will be subscribing to the August and subsequent boxes after that. And, you know, I don't see this being an issue again, just because no other green beauty brands are in cahoots with Unilever like True Botanicals is, so I don't really see this being an issue. And I just definitely wanted to still make it be known that I do still support Beauty Heroes, and I do still support Jeannie, and this was just not a collaboration or a brand that just really jived with me. And you know, that's okay. When you work with companies like Beauty Heroes or anyone that does like a subscription box where they work with, you know, lots of different brands, I mean, that's bound to happen. But it's okay to talk about it when it does happen. I don't think that these things should be swept under the rug or ignored or not talked about. I definitely think that these things should be talked about when they do come up. And you guys know that if it does come up again in any beauty box that I work with or anything, if it ever, in any aspect of my brand, I guess. I mean, you guys know I have no problem with being honest. I will talk about things that nobody else wants to talk about because I feel like it's important. Otherwise, I just feel like it's all inauthentic and fake. And I do feel like there's a little bit too much of that in the green beauty community. Honestly, I feel like there's a lot of people who just push product to push. It just feels it just sometimes can feel very inauthentic in an attempt to make money. And that's not why I'm here on my channel. I'm not here to make this my full-time job. I am not here to make money from you guys. I am not here to I'm here to, you know, tell the truth. I'm here to be real. I'm here to give you guys the facts. And yeah, I definitely think that there's a little bit too much inauthenticity in the space. And I mean, it's not gonna go away. It just sort of happens. It's one of those things. It's like when people become big enough, people change. Money becomes a factor, you know, brand collaborations become a factor, but I just want you guys to know that that's not ever going to happen over here because I do things a little bit differently. And definitely you guys should be following people that do things a little bit differently and don't just follow what other people say, and do your own research. Even anything that I say, do your own research, because you might find that something that I talk about is not something that you are okay with, which is totally fine. We all have different preferences and expectations and beliefs and everything, you know, that's okay. That's okay, because we're all human. So I think I've dragged on long enough, but I definitely did just want to do a follow-up to my True Botanicals video. I'm going to link it down below if you have not watched it yet. But yeah, so let me know if you've got any questions or if you want to talk about stuff some more or what you think. I was happy so many people so supportive of that video. You know, you do something like that and you really never know which way it's going to go, and I'm happy that you guys were so supportive of that. And you know, let's just continue the conversation. Let's just question things. Let's focus on being a more compassionate species, and, you know, trying to do better for ourselves and for the other inhabitants of this world and for the earth itself. So I hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope that this helped in some way. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. Hope you learned something or took something away from this. But yeah, let's continue the conversation. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys in my next one.